Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Back in 2019 when SEIKO in their infinite wisdom discontinued the SKX, we lost what was at the time the affordable Japanese big brand automatic dive watch benchmark. We cried, we wailed, we mourned our loss, and we mourned the gap in the market that it left. SEIKO then tried to fill that gap the next year by releasing what became known as the 5KX. Now, not a bad watch by any stretch, we got the movement upgrade that we were all craving, but we lost the screw down crown, we lost the 200 meters of water resistance, we lost the ISO rating. It wasn't really the same thing. It very much felt like 3 steps forward, but at least 2 steps backwards. Enter the ORIENT Kamasu, rather conveniently released by SEIKO's sister brand just as the SKX was discontinued. The Kamasu rather filled the hole. It was good looking enough, it was legible enough, it had pretty decent lume after dark, the bracelet was usable, and the price was right, and the biggest bonus of all, it had sapphire crystal covering the dial. More than enough for me to herald it as the new best dive watch under $200. That was a couple of years ago though. Orient haven't rested on their laurels. They have released a number of limited edition and coloured dial variants of the Kamasu, and to this day I still rate the Orient Kamasu as the Japanese big brand affordable automatic dive watch benchmark. But there is a new challenger to that throne, and it's by the other big Japanese powerhouse, Citizen. Before I get into the box and show you this watch today, a big shout out to Western Australian subscriber Jason. He has loaned me this and a bunch of watches in the past. You've probably heard his name. Thanks again, Jason. I'm always really appreciative when people trust me enough to send me their shiny new watches. Now, I have kind of reviewed this one before. I bought one myself a couple of years ago, or one that was very similar to this. I will circle back to that particular purchase a little bit later on. But Citizen last year released this watch in a range of new colours, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes all a range of watches need is a new colour to breathe new life and new sails into that particular model line, and it seems to be that this range of colours has captured the zeitgeist and propelled the Citizen back into the limelight. And indeed, this golden mustard fade dial has been enough to propel this watch into Jason's collection and back onto my bench for review. The model reference is NY0120-52X, the caliber is reference 8204, but what is the price reference? Well, let's have a look at JOMASHOP then, who are themselves the pricing benchmark. $250 for this Citizen. How does that compare with the Orient and the SEIKO that I just compared the watch to? Well, they're both significantly cheaper. Both of them around $200 regardless of which of the colour variants you go for. So the Citizen then is already at a bit of a disadvantage, a $50 disadvantage to be precise. Does it make up for that in other areas? Well, yes, it's the only one of the three that is a divers, 200 meters divers with an apostrophe, therefore ISO rated. The Orient is 200 meters with a screw down crown, as discussed. The SEIKO is 100 meters with no screw down crown, plus this one has a divers extension, ratcheting extension on the clasp. So if you are going to be using your watch for hardcore diving use, then perhaps this is the one to go for after all. What about dimensions? Well, it is a chunky little thing, 41mm in diameter, 13.8mm thick, with a lug-to-lug of 50.5, so that is longer than both of the other two watches. 20mm lug width, tapers down to 18, back up to 19.5 at the clasp. Sized up for me, I only had to remove one full link and one half link, by the way, 164 grams. As mentioned, screw down crown, 200 meters of water resistance. The dial covering today is a mineral crystal, and the movement is a Citizen 8204. You can't see it. You don't really want to see it, trust me on that. Instead, you get a solid stainless steel screw-on case back. ISO rated dive watches, certainly not at this price, don't tend to have display case backs anyway. That's asking a bit much of the budget. Japan movement Citizen. Now, magnetic resistance, there is a degree of anti-magnetism in this one, but it's pretty basic. It's only 60 Gauss, so don't go crazy. Diver's watch, 200 meters. 21 joules, roughly 40-hour power reserve. It hacks and hand winds because it's one of the newer 8000 series. but it does only spin in one direction. The rotor only spins in one direction. Let's get it on the time grapher though and see how accurate this one is. So that's this one on the Weishi then. Not amazing, but not awful either. These come from the factory with tolerances of anywhere between -20 to +40 seconds per day. So this one coming in around +10-ish is pretty much bang in the middle. And as you can see, it's a 3 Hz movement, 21,600 vibrations per hour. So the second hand ticks 6 times per second. But people don't generally buy this style of watch because of the accuracy, they buy them because they like the way they look, and this one looks good. I do like the addition of these fade dials, and yeah, I don't mind a little bit of 70s mustard myself. So indices are applied, triangle at 12, rectangles everywhere else, larger ones at the 6 and the 9, and a little one at the 3 to make way for the day-date complication. No angled rehaut today, but we do have a stainless vertical one. You can see depth, nearly 14mm thick. Depth is definitely going to be a feature of this watch. Minute track printed around the outer edge along with a 1/3 of a minute track. Very Citizen handset. Now I say Citizen, it is a Mercedes hour hand, but then Citizen were copying Rolex back in the 70s, and this is essentially a remake of a 70s style Citizen anyway. Very Promaster minute hand though, and a skinny little paddle second hand. Citizen embossed above the pinion, automatic, divers 200 meters, and the Promaster symbol embossed beneath the pinion, and that's pretty much it according to the dial anyway. The case on this one is really simple, but it is quite nicely done. Very fine brush on the side, slightly slabby side actually, and on the upper surfaces as well, in contrast to the high polished bezel. Now the bracelet isn't too bad either. It looks like a 3-link oyster style, but they are in fact just single links. At least it does have solid end links, unlike the 5KX, and a really quite nice clasp. If I pop it open, you'll see it's a scissor underneath, milled scissor underneath, pressed upper, but with a built-in divers extension, as I mentioned earlier on. Definitely one of the better clasps that I've seen on a big brand watch for this price. Aluminium bezel insert, 60-click unidirection dive time bezel. Sounds pretty good. I'll play a little clip of bezel audio here. Yeah, nice action, and it mostly lines up. It's just a hair off at the 12, as far as I can tell anyway. It's all pretty standard retro dive watch fare, and if you're not into this golden mustard colour, don't worry, there are 4 other slightly less 70s colours to choose from. And that is it on wrist. It has plenty of presence, partly because of that 70s golden mustard dial colour, partly because of the thickness and the shiny high polished bezel sitting proud on top of the case. Overall though, it feels quite balanced. 165 grams or thereabouts is perfectly fine for this size of watch. It is quite a long clasp. Now, you're not going to be using that divers extension for sizing. It does come supplied with 2 half links. I would suggest you size it using those, and generally only use that if you are diving, but it does balance out the head of the watch nicely. Again, I wouldn't really suggest this one if you have a wrist size of much smaller than 6.5 inches. It's not going to do you any favours, especially when combined with 50.5mm lug-to-lug length. That's the proper overhead shot. Legibility is actually okay. A little bit surprised because the hands aren't the biggest relative to the dial, and I wasn't sure how silver was going to go against this kind of mustardy gold coloured dial. But yeah, not too bad at all, and it is a decent sized watch at 41mm, so I guess that helps a bit. And again, that relatively long lug to lug, the thickness and the way it carries itself means it's not going to be suitable for those with much smaller than average wrists. But it's time for the moans and niggles section now. I have not shown you the loom, and that's because the loom isn't very good. It looks okay initially, but if I turn the speed up on this one, check the hands. They fade before the indices. That is the wrong way around. How many times have we seen this? I expect better than this from the AliExpress stuff, and I certainly expect better than this from Citizen, especially from one of their Promaster range. Now, I do appreciate the day date. If you're going to have a date on a watch, in some ways you may as well have a day on the watch as well. However, the Miyota 8000 series is not my favourite movement. If I'm comparing this, as I have been, to the SEIKO 5KX and the ORIENT Kamasu, I would rather have either of those movements than this one. Plus mineral crystal, the most expensive watch of the 3, no AR coating, yeah, a lot of bounce back under my studio lights and a lot of bounce back under sunlight outside, which is not going to be great for real world conditions. Now I said earlier on, I have reviewed this watch before. That's because I bought this watch before. Back then it was the NY0125 as opposed to this one 0120. Essentially the same thing though. I got it half price, I got it at a great price, and I did enjoy it, but ultimately, as with so many of the watches that I buy for review, I ended up selling it on. But has this new range with new colours changed my mind? Is this the new big brand affordable Japanese automatic dive watch benchmark? No, I still prefer the Kamasu. I think if you do insist on an automatic and you actually want to take it diving, well, this is the one to go for because of that diver's extension and because it's ISO certified. If you're all about the brand, then by all means go for the 5KX, but my choice is still the Kamasu. I think for the price differential, an extra 50 bucks off, and with the inclusion of that all-important piece of sapphire crystal, I think for most people, it's still going to be the choice. So Citizen, close but no cigar, I'm afraid. Please keep trying though. I hope that something knocks the Kamasu off its pedestal at some stage, because that means we'll have raised the bar for $200 divers, and that can only be a good thing.